this video, we will discuss how to seek support from and work effectively with external experts and consultants on digital security in the framework of a risk management process. Because of the nature of their work, human rights defenders are often targeted through digital tools, sometimes without even knowing it. At the same time, they rely a lot on the digital space to communicate, gather data, and amplify their messages. Even though technology is at the center of our work, digital security remains a complex and technical topic, influenced by subjective perceptions and feelings, which makes it at times challenging to address for anyone. And this prompts the need to look for external assistance. The availability of experts and consultants in the field of digital security is rather limited, and often resources allocated to safety and security issues are scarce, which makes it even more challenging to meaningfully and systematically engage with them. Therefore, it is important to take some steps to be ready to engage with external consultants if context, capacity, and resources allow. In this video, we will provide some tips and recommendations that could help you in the work with external consultants in the field of digital security. We hope this will help you to be able to recognize what type of knowledge, skills, and expertise you should look for in this person. Let's start with a role play presenting a scenario. Pay attention to the interaction between the consultant and the representative of the organization, and try to notice what is working well and what does not work in their conversation.
Hello, my name is Mikola. I have 20 years of experience in digital security and I can help you with everything.
Well, nice to meet you, Mikola. My name is Anna. I'm from the Balronia Human Rights Center.
Cool. Yeah, let's start from the basics. So we need to encrypt everything, everything, like laptops, smartphones, flash drives, the servers. Do you have a server?
Server.
Well, and passwords. Yeah.
Password.
So change all the passwords, like for all staff members, everywhere. How many staff members do you have, by the way?
So it's me. Then we have.
Did I mention the server? Yeah. Do you have one? You need one. You need one.
Okay.
So your own server to keep all the data secure. Yeah, in the office, because in the cloud you never know. Can you trust them or not? So to make it secure, and to be encrypted, yes. Everything should be encrypted, yeah. And two-factor authentication.
Well, okay.
Do you use Gmail? I know. Anyway, two-factor authentication everywhere, to all staff members.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not realize that we needed to look into.
This is for the start only, yes. But no worries.
Okay.
I can help you with everything, provide all the solutions. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So I'm so glad I ran into you.
Yeah, happy to help.
When can we start? I have my agenda.
Yeah, could have maybe a 3-hour call in 2 months. Yeah, 2 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah, extremely busy. Yeah, demand is so high. It's hard to help everyone. Yeah. So, but no worries. I will provide all the solutions. Yeah, solve all the problems.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then I better book your time.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Well,
see you in 2 months.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Yeah, thanks.
What did you notice in this scenario? What went well? What may need to be improved? Feel free to pause the video and reflect on what you have observed. In this clip, the consultant offers solutions without asking anything about the specific risks and problems that the organization is facing. This is a common issue. Remember what we discussed when we talked about the risk management process. It is important to always start by understanding the context and the potential risks in that specific context in order to be able to come up with any kind of solutions. Without knowing the context, it is less likely that the consultant will be able to properly assist. The conversation ended, and the consultant still does not know which type of risks the organization may be facing, what resources they have, etc. This means the consultant's support to this organization would most likely be very similar to the type of assistance the consultant is providing to the other organizations operating in other contexts. So it would not necessarily be tailored to the specific needs of the organization seeking support. In addition, it looks like the consultant is offering solutions straight away, a one-time or short-term support, rather than helping to come up with a continuous systematic approach. At the same time, the representative of the organization could have been more prepared to handle the conversation. She did not manage to make sure the focus was on their needs and just accepted what the consultant suggested. If you can do that, it might be easier to have such a conversation after taking the time to prepare and think what is needed from the external consultant on the basis of your needs and the circumstances that you work in. Remember, it is essential to ensure that the consultant knows the context. The context is almost everything to our security, so the consultant should know your context very well. Opt for a consultant that approaches risk management through a continuous lens. Short-term, one-time security activities never work. Finding someone who could guide you through a continuous, systematic approach is preferable. Make sure that the consultant does not offer solutions before identifying and prioritizing the main risks and problems. This is something that happens all the time. Make sure that your needs and the risks and problems you are facing are clear to the consultant before you start discussing solutions. Let's now consider another scenario, which will allow us to look into other important aspects of engaging with external consultants. Once again, listen to the interaction between the consultant and the representative of the organization, and try to spot what is working and what does not work here.
Hello, my name is Mikola. I have 20 years of experience of digital security in the region. I am available for any kind of training you might need. I can cover pretty much all the digital security related topics.
Well, really nice to meet you, Mikola. My name is Anna from the Balrona Human Rights Center, and I'm very happy that we get to meet today because we do have a lot of issues when it comes to digital security.
Did you have a general digital security training already?
It's a bit more complicated than that because we have a huge turnover, so some of us got the training, but we have many newcomers, and so yeah, I think we probably do miss some trainings.
Yeah, it would be nice to start with the basic digital security training for all staff members to cover all the main topics like encryption, 2FA, UDP, TCP, IP address, yeah, all of them. I mean, it's one training for everyone, and I have an agenda I can share with you, with my usual agenda, yeah. We can have it like next week.
Oh wow,
yeah.
that sounds great. I mean, I guess it's always really important for people to understand and to be able to get that knowledge. So
yeah, absolutely.
You said next week.
Next week, no problem, anytime. It's really easy. I mean, it's an easy part.
Okay.
Yeah. But if we want like more systematic approach, we after can have an advanced digital security training.
Okay.
Yeah. To cover pretty much same topics, but like deeper in details, like explore them. Yeah. So the staff members would become like more advanced. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like, would that mean that then staff member will be able to provide that training themselves?
This is like the next level. Okay? If you need to, we can have, it's like level up, real top level. A training of trainers. It's like longer. Yeah, it takes up to, I would say, 6 months, a series of trainings.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can train your staff members, them to be able to conduct trainings on basics, of course, on the basic topics, to other staff members. So because it's a good practice to have digital security training like every 6 months or so, and to all the new staff members. Yeah. So you will have your own trainers. Yeah.
I'm really happy. I think that sounds great. And so if we can start next week, that's even better.
Yes, we can. Absolutely. Anytime.
Well, Mikola, thank you very much for your time.
Cool. Thank you.
What have you noticed in this scenario? What went well? What may need to be improved? Feel free to pause the video and reflect on what you have observed. What we are seeing here is a typical example of a conversation in which the main focus was on the technicalities rather than on prioritizing people and processes. Remember, security is about conducting a thorough, systematic risk management process. It is not about tools, trainings, or separate technical solutions. It's about the management's decisions about who does what, when, etc., rather than a one-size-fits-all approach that materializes in "you need this list of technical solutions." Some technical terminology was also used: encryption, IP addresses. This might make it difficult for those who are not tech-savvy and more unexperienced to understand what the conversation is about and really make informed choices. Further, no information about the organization or about the risks they may be facing was discussed before the option of a training was brought to the table as a solution. Training matters, but it cannot be done in isolation. Another thing to be skeptical about is that the consultant introduced himself as an expert in everything. Digital security is a vast topic with many different specializations. Good consultants are honest about their own abilities and don't shy away from referring to other colleagues when needed. So, always make sure you engage with consultants who are people and processes oriented rather than technically oriented. Don't accept trainings or other educational activities as the main and only solution. A sound understanding of the risk management process and of what it entails and requires is needed from both sides. Understand what they are saying and what is happening. If the consultant is using complicated technical terms and you feel like you don't really understand what they're saying or what's happening, try to clarify those points. Let's now consider a third and last scenario, in which we will illustrate a few more important aspects to be aware of when engaging with an external consultant. Once again, pay attention to the interaction and try to assess how it's going.
Hello, my name is Mikola, a digital security consultant. Nice to meet you.
Hi Mikola, very nice to meet you. My name is Anna. I'm from the Bologna Human Rights Center. I've got your contacts through a trusted partner of ours who think you could be helping us because we have some digital security concerns.
I hope we can help you. Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about this incident on this database that happened a few weeks ago.
Yes, Hack database. Do you use the same one?
So our database is protected, but nonetheless, because of all these additional issues that seems to be happening, I feel now is the right time for us to invest a bit more in safety and security.
Do you already know what are the biggest potential problems or risks? Did you have maybe an internal discussion, conversation?
So I guess we all have some ideas, but we never really had a proper discussion, and I was hoping maybe you could be helping us in facilitating this discussion.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, we need all the decision makers in the room, and plus everyone else you believe should be there.
Okay.
It's up to probably 2 hours conversation. And sometimes we need only one conversation, sometimes maybe 2, 3 conversations. Yeah, but we can start with the first one. And you know the context, and only you can identify your problems. But I can help with like asking some questions, facilitating the conversation. Yes.
That'd be great.
And in the end of the meeting, hopefully we could have the list of the main problems, and we can start thinking how to deal with them. I mean, sometimes you might decide do nothing if the problem is not that big, or if to do something there are different options, and I can help to explore them. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds great. So if I got you right, then it means making sure everyone who has decision-making power should be then be consulted, or any other staff member that may be playing a role.
Participate, yeah.
Very good. I think in our organization it will mean quite a number of people, because we have a very collaborative way of working together. But then if you can help us with understanding a bit more the risk and prioritize them, I think that would be really efficient for us.
Yeah, we could start the first conversation to plan. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, then let me, now that we're both here, let me look at the agenda. I think I could start planning some meetings for the next week if you are available.
Yes, next week.
Yeah?
Yes, works fine. So we need up to 2 hours, and all the decision makers and any other people, you believe should be there.
Well, then I think we'll make it happen. That sounds great. Thanks a lot, Nicolas.
Cool. Happy to help.
What have you noticed in this scenario? What went well? What may need to be improved? Feel free to pause the video and reflect on what you have observed. In this example, trust and a proper connection between the consultant and the representative of the organization were established. This allowed them to have an open and honest conversation. The consultant asked questions, listened carefully to the answers of the representative of the organization, and managed to prompt them to share information that would be useful for him to understand their context, their risks, and the problems they might be facing, and their resources. Did you notice how the consultant also recognized his own limitations and the interlocutor's strengths and knowledge? The consultant acknowledged that the organization better knows the context in which they operate and is only there to assist. The representative of the organization was also able to articulate their needs. She had an understanding of the organization structure and of the resources that they could allocate to this process. She also seemed ready to start a collaborative and inclusive process. This helped the conversation flow and allowed the consultant to propose a course of action. So, it is key to listen to each other and make sure the consultant asks a lot of questions. This is the only way to really identify the main risks and problems, to understand what is your context, what is your capacity, what is the best way to help you, to offer realistic recommendations, and to make sure nothing important is overlooked. Engage with a consultant who is aware of their limits and acknowledges them. A good consultant, a good expert, honestly says, "I don't know," if there is something that they're not familiar with. Work with a consultant who does not try to make decisions for you and maintains the ownership on your side. The consultant can offer options, suggest something, but should always keep highlighting that it's up to you to decide. Make sure trust is established. How to assess trust? Take a minute to think about how you would assess whether or not you can trust a consultant. If the person is recommended by a trusted partner, it positively contributes to our trust. You may also have some impressions when engaging with the person. Do you feel you can work well together, or do you see something that you might perceive as red flags? If you feel like you don't really trust the person, it might be better not to deal with them, even if you cannot explain why. So, to wrap up, when you engage with an external consultant, ensure the consultant knows the context. Opt for a consultant that approaches risk management through a continuous lens. Make sure that the consultant does not offer solutions before identifying and prioritizing the main risks and problems. Engage with consultants who are people and processes oriented rather than technically oriented. Don't accept trainings or other educational activities as the main and only solution. Make sure you understand what they're saying and what is happening. Listen to each other and make sure that the consultant asks a lot of questions. Engage with a consultant who is aware of their limits and acknowledges them. Work with a consultant who does not try to make decisions for you and maintains the ownership on your side. Make sure trust is established. In this video, we presented some scenarios and provided you with some tips and recommendations with the aim to help you avoid some pitfalls and prepare ahead your communication with consultants. We have also learned about the importance to take a step back and reflect on your own needs and resources before engaging with consultants. We have listed some key considerations to be aware of while working with consultants in order to ensure a smooth collaboration. Of course, these tips are applicable for working with consultants on other related topics. We hope you enjoyed this video lecture. See you and stay safe.